But here's the deal. If you come on this team in 2 to 3 years, we're going to work you so hard. You're going to learn so much. You're going to grow so much that my goal is in 2 to 3 years, you're getting competing offers for people to steal you.
Welcome back to the podcast. We are on episode 49, almost the big 50. We're almost the big episode 50. We're excited to have you here, whether you are just listening in on your favorite streaming platform or you're watching us on YouTube. Welcome. I hope you're catching the changes on set because every couple episodes, it's a little different back here. One big change today, the guy sitting next to me in this chair, no longer Luke McElroy.
Nope.
How you doing, Darrel?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. This is a fantastic set. I'm so
we're,
excited to
we're
be
so
here.
proud. We
This is
said
great.
we'll stop mentioning it one day, but so far it's not been the day.
Don't ever stop mentioning it. It's a great set.
Yeah, we've been having fun, but we are especially having fun today. Darrel Girardier from Brentwood Baptist Church here in the Nashville area. You guys have hosted SALT for 2 years at our conference, which has been absolutely wonderful. We always feel like we overwhelm you because we take over everything.
You do, but you do it in such a way that I'm totally cool with it because you guys think of such creative ways to use our building that I'll go around, take photos and go, we're going to steal that. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to steal that. And so I don't mind it. I'm like, this is fantastic. So to me, I'm like a kid in the candy store. And it's really cool to see that happen.
I think it's fun for us when we go back to a church, we see pictures from a church or we're looking up at their website. We're like, oh my gosh, that's like something we did at SALT. And we find out, oh yeah, we got the idea at SALT.
Yeah.
That just means so much to us. Like
Cool.
we feel so grateful. People are copying us in certain creative ways that we can. But Darrel, you are the Executive Director of Ministry Resources. That's quite the title. What does that mean? What are you doing from day to day?
That's a great question. So I started out as the communications director and I still do that. So I have 4 buckets. My first bucket is communications.
Hold on, you work in a church and you wear multiple hats?
I wear multiple hats. Surprise, surprise. So for those of you who know, Brentwood Baptist, we've got 9 campuses. But each campus has its own campus pastor. So it's like it's 9 churches is what I tell people. It's like we are one team serving 9 churches. So I have a communications team, video producers, designers, writers, project managers. And then I got a data team, and that data team is overseeing basically all the data that comes into the building on a Sunday to Sunday basis.
We're going to talk about why data is important here soon.
Oh, yeah. And then you got our leadership development team that I oversee. So that's our ministry residency program, along with our bivocational program. So it's basically our leadership pipeline. And then the 4th team I oversee is our stewardship team. So that's basically you're giving your donations. So communications, data, leadership development, and then stewardship.
And you're stewarding the team.
Yeah, I am. I'm stewarding the team. The way we look at it is like this: we have a mission and vision of the church we believe that God's laid out for us, and so our job is to help fund that mission with the stewardship for the giving the dollars, fund it with new leaders in the pipeline for what we need to do, and then tell that story either through the data that we're coming in or just the stories of life change that our communications team is going to communicate. So that's how we fit into the mission and vision of the church.
Yeah. So leading a team, not an easy thing.
No.
You've got quite a few people under you, quite a few people doing very different things.
Yes.
How often are you thinking about how effective they are, not just as a team, but as individuals?
Confession, I think about it way too much. In fact, maybe a separate podcast we can do of a therapy session.
Whole
about that.
episode or two.
Yeah, I do. I think about it a lot. Part of it is my background. I came from the corporate world. And so it was easy for me to kind of think through, we're doing this creative. It's part of a product. We're going to sell the product. The product's going to make X amount of dollars. And therefore you could figure out if you made money, you lost money. It was super easy. Or X amount of people came to an event that we did. And so I don't think I've ever shaken that part of me. And so I'm always constantly thinking about how we can be more effective in what we do. So it's something I think about all the time.
And people think that corporate and ministry, they're just so different, such completely different worlds. But I think there's so much you can learn from each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, in corporate, I think of a sales guy. You can measure how many quotes they've sent out, how many sales they've actually made, what revenue they're bringing in, how many pitches they've pitch decked out. So there's all these concrete ways of measuring how effective they are in that job. In the church, I feel like it's not so black and white sometimes. It can be so much more obscure. But that's why you're here as an expert in the room, because I feel like you've tackled that in some ways, using that corporate mindset in that experience. But leading the teams you have, you found ways to measure effectiveness.
Yeah, especially on the communication side. One of the things I think we immediately wanted to solve was like, how are we being effective? How are we being efficient with our time? And I think part of that equation for people, and this is where, again, it gets a little sticky, because you're going to, especially with your younger team members, you're going to ask me some things to them that feel a little bit out of sorts in terms of, they'll tell you, this is not what I signed up for. I signed up for, you'll hear this all the time, I signed up for ministry. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't disagree. Yes, you did. But I also signed up to steward the dollars and the time, because the time you spend on your work is attributed to the dollars that are coming in. In other words, the church's giving is funding what you do, or maybe you're a volunteer, it's funding the tools that you're using. And so I've got to be a good steward of that. And so I think you have to measure the effectiveness, and you've got to even the efficiency of what we're doing. So when you think of that, again, that's a big mind shift for people.
Yeah.
So one of the things I say is the easiest thing to start doing is ask yourself, what are you doing? Are you tracking what you're doing? And so I think in the SALT world, when you're talking about media teams, creative teams, there are some very basic things you can do of just saying like, hey, do we have a project management system? Do we have basic things where we understand what's coming in? And then 1, do you have understanding of everything coming in? 2, do you understand what the goal is of those things? And 3, how much time is it going to take? And then how much time did it actually take? How much do we think it's going to take? How much time it actually did take? And then you can start.
Because it feels one way, but the data is different sometimes.
Yes, yeah. So then you start doing those like this is low level. You could do this in a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You really start you can start to see patterns, and you can start to say, okay, we think that we are spending our time here, but it's actually going here. This ministry in our church is actually taking up more of our time than we realize. And then you can start asking.
Is that the one that needs to be priority?
Exactly. Then you start asking questions of going, okay, wait a minute. Is that because we have a natural affinity towards them? The student ministry lets us do lots of wild and crazy things. And let's be honest, senior adults, it is what it is. We're not doing anything creative. And so all of a sudden you start going, okay, you can start to see how things are incongruent with the reality of what you think is actually happening. And so that to me is like, I would say layer 1 is just start getting some data in. You don't have to be super, super complicated. Just get some very initial data sets in, and you'll start to go, okay, this is where we're actually spending our time. And you can really start to paint a picture.
Yeah. I feel like you could have an employee or, a team member who looks really busy working on that spreadsheet, working on their, here are my goals for the month, the year, the next few weeks. What is the difference between a staff member who is busy and one who is genuinely effective? Can you actually just watch them and tell the difference?
In some ways you probably can, to be honest with you. Here's what I would say. When I am working with somebody and I'm kind of going, are we just doing a lot of busy work? Or are we actually really hitting the hammer, we're hitting the nail on the head? What you do is you start asking them, okay, hey, I know what you've got right now in the moment. You are in your email inbox, you're in Adobe's Creative Suite, and you're creating stuff. That's great. What is your goal and outcome for today? What do you hope to accomplish today? And I say, give me your punch list is what we call it. Give me your list. And then I might say, what do you want to get done this week? And then I may say, okay, what do you want to get done this month? What do you want to get done over the next 90 days? And as you slowly pull them out, you're going to find out real quickly whether or not they're living in their inbox, and whether or not they're just moving from thing to thing to thing, or whether or not they have an actual large-scale plan to figure out how to be effective.
Yeah.
In other words, did they tie what they do to a larger goal? And you as a leader, when you find that moment, when you go, okay, you are literally living in your inbox. Part of me says, I want to dive in and go, what are you thinking? I just want to, you know. But then I want to fix it. But then I have to go, okay, I may have failed as a leader. You have to ask yourself as a leader, did I set the proper vision? Did I put the processes in place where we have moments to pause and ask ourselves whether or not that's the right thing to be doing in that moment? And so there are moments when you have to realize that as a leader, the way you sometimes stop the busyness versus effectiveness is just hitting the pause button and elevate people and say, hey, today we're gonna coach on how to actually set a structure a day. Then we'll talk about a week, then a month, and then 90 days out. So it's really about helping that person pull them up a little bit and then walking them through that. But you have to with a tremendous amount of grace, because you got to remember, for some people, this is maybe something nobody's ever done for them before.
Yeah, brand new. I've
Brand
never
new.
had to spend their,
Yeah,
8 hours, however long,
it is.
focusing that way and figuring that out and thinking through it differently.
Well, because ministry's tricky. Like, people don't realize, like, people from the outside looking in, when they look at a church, they just see Sunday morning. And then they think, my wife has been a minister for 25 years. And she's been a girls minister. And she used to laugh because the girls thought all she did was just have coffee all week long with girls. And you're like,
What else is
Sunday,
there?
what else is there to
Build
do?
those relationships
Yeah.
at the coffee
And so you
shop.
can look at ministry like that, and you don't really realize there's a grit and grind to it. So all of a sudden, when you see it and you actually immerse yourself in it, it can be overwhelming. And that's when all of a sudden the business trap comes in, because all of a sudden you feel like everything's coming right at you.
Okay, so at SALT, I feel like we took it a step further, maybe. I don't want to say it was necessarily the next step, but we got into a pattern where our team was spending, we do staff meetings. We talk about our weekly goal. We do stand-ups where we talk about our daily goal. And they have to be SMART goals, which is, I'll put it in the show notes, but it's measurable is the biggest thing. It's a quantitative goal. But we got to the point people were just giving us their to-do lists, their punch lists, but that's all they were giving us. And so we had to, I feel like, switch over to, okay, just one goal only. What is the most important thing you get done today? And that reshaped things for our team. Not only did they have to think through their day, and they had to think through being efficient in that day and meeting that goal, but we also had the follow-up piece the next morning. All right, how did we do on our goals yesterday? And I take notes or use AI to record to say, here's what your goal was. I know we do that on Fridays specifically with weekly goals. Did we meet that goal? You were held accountable, and the whole team is there, not for shame or anything, but just to make it clear that as a team, we're keeping this very clear of what we're getting done.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic.
Good. I needed your confirmation that was a good approach.
So we started implementing daily stand-ups. And one of the things that drives me nuts in a daily stand-up is, because we did the same thing. Tell me what you're going to get done today. And they would say, well, here's what should happen. I was like, do not say should, do not say could.
I want to start.
Don't start. Tell me what the finished product of what you're going to do today.
Yes.
You may not do an entire video today, but what's the deliverable I can say tomorrow morning? You're going to hand me the script, storyboards, whatever that is. And that is coaching your young creatives on really focus on the desired outcome.
Yeah.
And versus just, I'm going to try to do X, Y, and Z. And that's why I think the SMART goal is that is so smart that you're doing
smart,
that.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to dive in to talk about the younger generation here in a minute. But I want to ask, because I think it's a very fine line between micromanaging and just being a good leader and guiding, or just being too hands off. Yeah. What is that good leader line where you're not micromanaging too much, but you're also not just letting people just willy-nilly spend their day however they feel like? And being that good steward.
How do you do it so you're not laissez-faire where just everything goes haywire?
Yes,
that is one of the hardest things to strike, because I believe it's a little bit like a pendulum. I think of it like you either in really two camps. I'm in caring mode or critiquing mode. And if you think of it like a pendulum, you always want to try to land in the middle. But there are moments when you got to put on the critiquing hat and say, what you did was not up to standard. We've got to fix that.
And you cannot wait to have that conversation.
Yes, you can't wait.
Because then it gets awkward. You waited too long.
There
is always a spot.
And then there's moments when you got to go, right now I need to be in caring mode. I need maybe to listen a lot more, talk less. So I really think you really have to strike that. So the micromanagement is I need to critique. I'm going to get in the weeds. I'm going to tell you what typeface. I'm going to tell you the colors.
Just doing their job for them pretty much.
Yes, you're going to feel like that. But I would also say one of the things as a leader is also you have to ask, what you should know for every single person you work with is you should know two things. One, where do they want to be? Second question is, where are they currently at? And your job is to close the gap between the two. That's your job as a leader. Find out where they are, where they're supposed to be, and your job is to close the gap. When you go from critique to caring is based off of how much pushing and pulling you've got to do to get them to where they want to be.
When you say that, do you mean like career-wise, where they want to be in their career, in their role?
Yeah, it's career, role, skill set, spiritually speaking. Like where do you want to be? And for some people, one of the things that's eye-opening is when you bring somebody in and you ask that question, a lot of creatives will say, nobody's ever asked me that.
I've never asked my team that.
Yeah. Where do you want to be?
I feel like they just bring it to me and tell me. But yeah, you're right.
Well,
open that invitation so that it's not awkward.
But don't you think to a certain degree, as leaders, we don't ask that question because we're afraid what the answer may be, because we may be losing them at some point, or...
Oh, and you told me a story that I want you to retell about how you hire people.
Yes.
And the idea of losing them.
Yeah. So yeah, one of my So, the beauty of living in Nashville is Nashville to a certain degree is kind of like, it's a little easy on the creative. Like you can say like, it's Nashville.
Creative town.
A lot of people want to live here.
Yeah.
But one of the pitches I tell people is, look, hey, I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm pretty good at identifying talent. And I think you got the talent. But here's the deal. If you come on this team in 2 to 3 years, we're going to work you so hard. You're going to learn so much. You're going to grow so much that my goal is in 2 to 3 years, you're getting competing offers for people to steal you.
Man, can you imagine someone wants to hire you and that's what they say?
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but...
Yeah, I want to steal you. And by the way, if you're not there in 2 to 3 years, I failed you. And so when I do that, it's not because I want anybody to leave. I want everybody to stay.
Yeah.
But I want them to know that's the mentality I'm approaching their work with and their career with. Because I want them to know I care about your career so much, I'm willing to critique it to get you to where you need to be. And again, but you also have to remember in that context of that is that every single person you work with on your team is going to be unique and different. So you're going to have to approach that a little differently on that pendulum.
There's no
pendulum
standard
between
as a leader. It just always goes way. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the pitch I give them. And 9 times out of 10 it works. Sometimes that's do scare people off. But I'd also say this. If you give that pitch and they say, it's not for me, then guess what? You've just avoided what could have been 18 months of headaches with them not working out on the team.
Awkward, the hard conversations, the frustrated team members.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. And it's a scary pitch to give because we know how hard it is to hire and to find the right person. But I guess it's just, like you said, a sign that maybe they're not the right fit if that conversation scares them.
Yeah. And that's because the other thing about the other beautiful thing about the work that we do in the creative spaces is that when you're hiring people, you can see their portfolio. You can see all this. So I feel like emotionally speaking, we have to double click and dive a little deeper, because you could just hire based on portfolio. They crushed it. That looks great. That lighting on the stage is awesome. I watched it on YouTube. I think the way they do the sound is phenomenal. But I think as leaders, we have to double click and start asking those type of questions, because those chemistry related questions, I think, can derail a team if you're not careful.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the young generation.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say it's specifically Gen Z has been trending, coming up a ton about their push for a 4-day work week. And, it's generalizations here, but studies show, that kind of thing. 4-day work week and clearer boundaries. They want very clear work time, personal time. My phone is off. I do not check emails. Yes. How have you been experiencing that? And how has that affected, effectiveness in the workday?
So this is therapy session number 2. The first one was me.
We're going to have a podcast season just with Darrel.
Exactly. Okay. So I really wrestled with this. I remember, I'll tell other people, I'm Gen X.
Okay.
I remember when I started with Gen Y. I remember the exact moment where I was when I was doing something and I was like, okay, this is not going the way it's planned.
Gen Y being millennials.
Millennials. And I went, oh, these are millennials. And I called my mentor and I was like, I got a problem. And he was like, you have a problem. We literally was like, we had to reconfigure how we thought and how we led in that moment. Okay. And I remember the first true Gen Z I hired, and she came on board, and I went, okay,
ring mentor. We have another problem.
We have another problem. And so what I started to realize with that is that for a lot of these kids, and I'm stereotyping folks, they've had helicopter parents.
Oh.
Okay. So
it's millennials' fault.
Those parents have told them everything they're going to do their entire lives. Their schedule has been mapped out for them. So when you're moving on to creative team, you're moving in what we call knowledge work, which is basically you have work defined for you, but how that work gets done is a little bit self-defined by you. And what happens for Gen Z is they come in and they lock up. So all of a sudden it's like, I want you to tell me exactly what to do. I want you to give me the exact boundaries but I've got this certain framework that all of a sudden, because their whole life has been that framework, and all of a sudden they expect the work world to be like it was when they grew up. So I've had to realize, go back to that care and critique. I'm going to have to be a lot more micromanaged. I'm micromanaged Gen Z. I'll say that right now on the record.
Is that long term, or is it you start there?
Start there. We start there.
Okay.
So for us,
there's hope.
There's hope. No. And it's little things like, you're going to be in the office by this time each day. Okay.
You have to say it.
You have to say
Yeah.
it. I can't assume that you understand what a typical work day looks like. I just can't make that assumption. And so we're going to coach you in the creative space. If you're a designer, you are going to eat and sleep the brand guide until you can't stand it anymore, because I need to basically focus on driving the process so much home with you, to the point to where all of a sudden you're like, it's like second nature for you. And so when you're working with that younger team members, I really want to do that in such a way that they understand I'm really trying to mentor them. I'm really trying to pour into them.
Which means you have to have the heart.
You have to have the heart.
That spot too. It can't just be, I'll pretend.
Yes.
I just want the work done.
And by the way, let me say, if you are managing Gen Z, you got to put on your shin guards, because they are going to kick your shins all the time. They say, again, I'm stereotyping.
Blunt.
They're blunt.
Yeah.
Unbelievably blunt.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, because I have one who I love to death. Shout out to Lily Branks. Lily, and she will just fire right back at me, and I'll fire back at her, and we know we're joking. But she is one of those people, like, she's extremely high creative, really good at what she does. And I've had to realize that she's going to say stuff that I kind of go, I can't believe you said that. I laugh at it, because I don't get offended by it, but I start to think, okay, other people may be offended by that. So when you're working with that younger audience, they are growing up in an environment where they can pretty much say whatever they want, and they feel like I can just do that. So that's part of the process is coaching them on what a professional work environment looks like.
Yeah.
And that's what you're having to do.
Have you discovered some line or some mile mark? I think a mile marker is a better way to phrase it, where you're like, all right, I can step a little bit more out of the micromanaging. Like, they've kind of got it, and I'm stepping into a different phase with them.
Yes, I think so. I think once you really, it's about like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to do this. I'm going to show you how to do this. You're going to show me you know how to do it. And then after a certain amount of times, we take the wheels off. I mean, I'll give you an example. When we do our student creative, the first time we do it is I'm actually gonna lead the creative meeting with the student ministry team. I will sit down and I'll show you how we do a creative meeting. I'll show you how we do the brainstorm. And after we do it, probably once or twice over 2 different seasons, maybe summer and fall. When we come to the winter, guess what? You're going to lead out. And so,
do you still sit in though?
I'll sit in.
How they do?
I'll sit in.
Twice? Okay.
I'll sit in and say, hey, if you want my feedback, I'll give you feedback. And so then you slowly take the hands off.
Yeah.
The other component you have to think of is that you have to scale as a leader. So there is a certain moment where you got to take your hands off. But do you understand that if you do that heavy lifting on the front end of really pouring into them, really mentoring them, really guiding them, tightly structuring things on the front end, all of a sudden, 6 months, 9 months down the road, you can take the hands off the wheel and know that's going to be done to a level of quality that you expect.
Yeah. I love that. All right, we're going to shift just a tad. Wrap this up with probably the most practical question. There are probably churches out there who have never thought about measurable statistics of effectiveness for their staff. Give us a few examples. What are some stats, some KPIs that we can assign to certain roles to help measure?
That's a great question. So what I would
departments, I'll throw
so
that.
if you're thinking like, okay, first impressions, your connections ministry, I think that's really easy. It is first time guests. How many first time guests did you have? What's the follow-up look like in terms of they came, they visited, we did X amount of follow-ups, and did they come back? So there's a very basic metrics you can put in place. And the beauty of that is when you start to see that, you can start saying, okay, here's how effective our methods are. Let's redo that and figure out how we can get greater effectiveness out of that. The other thing I think we can start to measure is, well, let me say this about the measurements real quick. I think this is important. There's 2 different measurements when you're talking effectiveness. There's leading indicators and lagging indicators. So if you don't know what those are, your leading indicators are basically the first mile marker that leads to the second mile marker. So for us, I'll give you a great example. For us, we know to get somebody to be a missionary, it takes 100 people to go on a mission journey. They go on a mission trip.
Yeah.
We get 100 people. Out of that, I can get one missionary, future missionary. So that leading indicator is 100 people going on missions. The lagging indicator is one missionary. So when you're thinking the effectiveness, you want to think through both things.
Both lenses.
So that right there, that's how I approach missions. Okay, I want you to focus on getting as many people. Our church right now is a goal of 100 missionaries on the field. We have 35 right now. We need 65 more. So what are we thinking through? I'm not thinking through the 65 I need. I'm thinking through the 6,500 that I've got to get to go on mission trips over the next 5 to 10 years or whatever that is. So missions, that's an easy one. It's an easy one to think through. Okay, so let's get to the creative space real quick.
Yeah.
So the creative space for me, what I'm thinking through is I'm not thinking through the number of slides you cranked up. I'm not thinking that through. What I'm thinking of is here's a metric we actually do measure. How quick did you actually get back to your teammates in the creative process?
I have heard there was at one point a rule, like you had to respond to an email within 48 hours or something.
So our rule is pretty simple. You have 24 hours to get back to your teammates.
Oh, wow. Okay.
24.
Okay.
24 hours. And I actually have a dashboard set up that's called, it's waiting for team feedback. And basically every day I can pull up and I can tell you everything that I'm waiting on somebody else to respond to inside the team.
Wow. Okay.
I also have another dashboard that is how long I'm waiting for a ministry to get back to our team on the creative that we did. So that's a very simple thing you do, but that gives you an idea of like, hey, if we've got 65 things, which I think is what the number was the other day, 65, 66 things we're waiting on from the team, what you tell them is, hey, do you realize that like we can't get things done because I'm waiting on you? And all of a sudden it's, you really, honestly, the beauty of that is you don't have to enforce that. There's a natural team guilt of like, I feel guilty because I'm holding that person up from getting the work done. Yeah. And all of a sudden people just say, I don't want to do that.
Efficiency will uptake.
Efficiency kind of takes care of itself when you do that.
I love this. If people want to contact you,
yes,
to get a little bit more context, or hey, my church is struggling with this. If they want to get in contact with you directly, how can they do that?
Easy thing to do is probably LinkedIn.
Okay,
that's probably where I will check the DMs on that. So yeah, just hit me up. You can hit me up on Instagram as well.
Darrel Girardier.
Just you can search me. I'm there.
Yeah, awesome. We'll try to drop some links in the show notes for you too.
Cool.
Darrel, thank you for bringing your expertise and your trial and error of your life, and we're running these teams to this podcast.
A lot more error and a lot more trials and errors. You are correct.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate it. Podcast people, as you're listening, hopefully also watching on YouTube, make sure that you're checking out SALT 2026 as well for your tickets. Again, Brentwood Baptist has hosted SALT in the past in Nashville, which is where we are hoping to be again in 2027. I say that nothing is confirmed, so maybe this means now we put it on the pod.
Yeah, actually, you're right. We did. Yeah.
Darrel's the guy to ask, right? Well, he'll say yes to whatever, and then it's locked in.
I just had a conversation about that before I came to the building today about you guys coming to 2027.
Awesome. Hopefully it's good news.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all. Join us next week.